Legend has it that darkness once covered the world. We know so little about the Keyblade War, only that it was just the beginning.
This world is just too small. My appointed path is now etched in my heart, which will first lead me to seek the outside world. My future self gave me a task to visit the splintered versions of myself in many worlds and ensure they gathered here today.
This world has been connected.
Every light must fade. Every heart return to darkness.
Kingdom Hearts. Hear me, Kingdom Hearts. You can no more be complete without me than I without you. Have you finally decided to call upon the darkness?
If ruin brings about creation, what then would another Keyblade War bring? When the darkness falls, will we be found worthy of the precious light the legend speaks of? Kingdom Hearts, I call upon your true form. Open now and show me the world to come.
For if I am the child of destiny.
Xehanort, a man of many faces, many bodies, and many coats. The antagonist of the Darkseeker saga, who was first introduced at the end of Kingdom Hearts 2. From his first introduction, he is set up as the antagonist for the coming title, Birth by Sleep, but becomes so much larger than that as the ending of that game solidified him as the catalyst for all of the events throughout Kingdom Hearts. Welcome to the Psychology of Xehanort. Xehanort was first shown off in Kingdom Hearts 2, but chronologically, his journey starts much further back. Before even Birth by Sleep, we have Xehanort's journey down his dark road. Xehanort is first introduced on the Islands of Destiny. He is cared for by the player character in Union Cross, who tells him that he is the child of Destiny, the one who would save the world from darkness. Xehanort is told that he will have many interactions throughout his journey, interactions that will impact his emotions and thoughts leading him on his destined path. We learn that, for whatever reason, the Destiny Islands are a place where darkness couldn't find him, or at least couldn't find him until he was strong enough to face it. His knowledge here shows that he knows he isn't from this pocket of islands, and we also learn that he desperately wants to see his mother again. At such a young age, he's already told that he's this child of destiny and that he's going to be led down this destined path. So it makes sense why, when we see him in future titles, that he's kind of haughty, since he believes that he is doing what is supposed to happen. Alongside this destined path, Xehanort has dreams of the player character and his friends from Union Cross, connections that he traces through his caretaker's heart. This power is unique, a power to sense what is in the hearts of others. This is a power that may feel familiar, as we see it in another character, Sora. The way it is explained is a deep empathy, an ability to feel and share what others feel, but on top of that, to embrace what others feel in their hearts and to connect and become one with that heart. This isn't just about understanding how someone feels, but about connecting to them through that understanding. These dreams that Xehanort has, as well as the stories he would hear from his caretaker, stoked the fire in his heart of leaving the Isles of Destiny. Well, it also helped that he was taken to the future and the events were all etched onto his heart, instilling in him a desire to see the outside worlds and follow the future he had seen play out. But we'll get to that later. His future self finds him here and confirms that there are indeed worlds outside of the Destiny Islands, that there's more to his life than just living on some barren island for the rest of his days. This exchange gives us yet another insight into Xehanort's character. His older self entices him with a chance to learn more and to gain more knowledge. He knew exactly what to say to his younger self to push him off the Destiny Islands. He knew deep down that he was hungry for more than what his island had to offer. And so, he stoked the flames, opening a dark corridor and coaxing him in, setting him down his dark road, as without the proper protection, he was vulnerable to the darkness. The older Xehanort plants this phrase in his mind: "But if you lack the courage and strength, your dreams will remain dreams forever." That the dreams of his friends could become reality, that he could truly meet them. Thinking about the lengths that Xehanort goes to throughout the series to return things to what he believes is a balance, this is such a powerful statement and belief to internalize here. It is instilled, showing up even at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3. So it's safe to say this was a motivating belief, that if he had the courage and strength, he could do anything. Xehanort believes his older self completely, and enters the Corridor of Darkness. As Xehanort walks through the darkness, it speaks to him. Though he can't understand what is said, it stirs up his own emotions, probably utilizing that unique ability of connection. Hatred, jealousy, and doubt are all thrown at him. It's overwhelming. It's fascinating that he notes here that these were emotions that he had never experienced before. Also, the parallels to Riku are astounding here, because Riku goes through something similar. Riku was also on those islands growing up, having similar experiences to Xehanort. They both wanted to see the outside world, they both traveled through the darkness to reach other worlds. But while Xehanort turned to darkness, falling deeper and deeper into that abyss, Riku had friends and support who saved him. When you also look at the idea that Riku was originally supposed to be the child of destiny, it's kind of interesting, the parallels there. And the fact that Sora changed all that. But we'll talk about that bug in the system at a later date. During Xehanort's traveling through the Corridor of Darkness, he found comfort that even though he was experiencing foul emotions, it meant he could still feel. Emptiness, as seen at the end of this cutscene, is far more terrifying to Xehanort than the darkness. And honestly, at the end of the Darkseeker saga, he kind of becomes a husk of himself, empty and alone. Throughout Dark Road, we see him have feelings and empathy, but by the time the events of Sora's journey happens, Xehanort hardly feels any remorse or really anything. He's this stone wall enacting the plan to bring forth Kingdom Hearts. We know that Xehanort can connect with other hearts, and it doesn't seem like he has full control of that, at least when he was younger. I honestly wonder if that constant empathy eventually turned him cold, hardening his heart to others' distress. Anyways, getting back on track. It's interesting that Xehanort doesn't talk about how he arrived to Scala when Ericus asks him how he got there. This version of Xehanort we see in Dark Road is very clever, having some really profound insights and thoughts, though that doesn't keep him from having a casual, joking side. As he trains to become a Keyblade Master, he becomes close with his cohort, all Keyblade Masters in training, working hard to learn and become protectors of the light. But Xehanort still isn't satisfied. He notes that it's just becoming like his island, day in and day out doing the same mundane things. He starts to look inward. Maybe the problem isn't his environment, but himself. The way he engages with others is his problem, and it is what shapes who he is and what he'll become. He wants more than anything to see the friends from his dreams, and believes that becoming a Keyblade Master will help him attain that goal. So he looks to dig deeper, to understand more about Kingdom Hearts and his purpose. All this sets his personality up for us quite well. Xehanort is a deeply curious person, who takes matters of the mind and heart very seriously, as those are what he believes makes a person who they are. The driving factor when he arrives at Scala is learning more so that he can find the friends from his dreams, as well as his mother. He is quiet and clever, having incredible insight into the workings of how people think and feel, often saying these deeply profound things as he muses. This is thanks to his unique ability to connect, feel, and understand people's hearts, which greatly impacts him, as can be seen as he wakes up crying in the Destiny Islands, as well as when he forays through the Corridor of Darkness. Due to these strong feelings though, he fears one day that he will stop feeling anything, being completely empty. This is what drives him to continue growing and seeing new things, fearing the complacency that would set in for him as things become familiar and mundane. This is the crux of what drives Xehanort. He flees from that feeling of emptiness, and in so doing, drives himself toward the very thing he fears, though that would not happen for many years to come. In this new place, he thrives, making friends and training to become a Keyblade Master. He often plays a strategy game with Ericus, developing a strategic mind to combat every eventuality. It is here one day where he talks with Ericus about the Keyblade War. Xehanort believes the future has already been seen and written. Xehanort believes darkness will prevail and light expire, and he comes to believe he will be the one to bring about that fated day. He would be the one to seek out the darkness that would make light expire, the Seeker of Darkness. This path will begin here in Dark Road, during a fateful day where everything is thrown into disarray. During the upperclassmen's training for the Mark of Mastery, they mysteriously go missing. The overarching story of Dark Road focuses on Xehanort and the lower classmen as they look for their classmates. Except for Xehanort, the others had not seen any of the outside world, as far as we know. So it is an exciting but serious time in their lives. Xehanort has a lot of curiosity though about the other worlds, showing that craving for knowledge to see more. He's also pretty intentional about voicing that he wants to help the upperclassmen, though shows a cautiousness about how they should go about looking for them. He wants to keep the world order when his classmates are talking about traveling to other worlds outside of Scala. Xehanort shows an uncanny understanding of how the worlds work, piecing information together very quickly and hypothesizing that the upperclassmen's disappearance might be linked with the instability of the worlds. He also doesn't back down easily, a characteristic we know quite well from future titles, but is shown here pretty well, as evidenced by this conversation between him, Ericus, and Bragi. Lastly, this opening shows us that he is not a follower, feeling that it would be best to not report anything to their master quite yet. He wants to gather information first before making any rash decisions, even waiting to report to his master. The last thing I want to note here is the armor that Xehanort dons. While this isn't really so much part of his psychology, it is interesting how the armor here that Xehanort dons is the crown keyblade armor we have seen in KH2 and Birth by Sleep. This armor is probably pretty familiar, with it having a pretty strong crown motif, alongside the Nobody sigil. I think for Xehanort this implies a shift at some point, seeing as his armor at the end of KH3 is the Scapegoat. While there is not much evidence, I think Xehanort initially was the Child of Destiny, the bearer of the crown roll, who would control Kingdom Hearts. But at some point something changed. It could have been the Master of Masters seeing the future and shifting Xehanort's path to ensure a different outcome. It could have been the nature of darkness infecting him and making him unworthy of the crown. Or it could be something completely different. All we know though is something changed and shifted his role to that of the Scapegoat, taking the fall for the darkness, being used as a means to an end. But that kind of shifts away a bit from who Xehanort is and teeters on theory crafting. Let's return back to Dark Road. This title really hammers home the idea that light and darkness are not good and evil. Xehanort thinks about how change can come from anywhere, light or darkness. This becomes a core belief for Xehanort and is something he thinks about often, that darkness is not necessarily evil. I think this is shown pretty well with the Wonderland world, where he notices the darkness hiding inside of the Queen. He connects with Ericus' heart here as he mulls over the darkness he saw, even speaking at the same time as his friend when they state darkness can hide inside someone's heart. He questions if it is even right to turn your Keyblade on someone who doesn't even know they have darkness within them. This shows a level-headedness that Xehanort has. He always gives everything a second to sink in before he reacts, like when their friends are in trouble. Xehanort, though scared for their friends, doesn't rush in without thinking of a plan. He acts as an anchor as well, keeping Ericus from overreacting. While Xehanort is in Wonderland, there's an odd little exchange where he just kind of turns and leaves mid-conversation with these people. So while Xehanort has this deep innate curiosity, it's not for everything. He notes later that he doesn't think he will find his friends here, so it leaves the only interesting thing here being the Queen. So it takes a somewhat sizable mystery to engage him, otherwise he just completely disengages. It's not even done out of malice, it seems. He just disconnects and moves on. I think there's just this fundamental disconnect from people he doesn't seem to think are on his level. He enlists the help of Ericus, who figures him out, but leaves the other party member out of the loop while trying to find out more about the darkness in the Queen's heart. The decision is made trying to keep that party member's safety in mind, but it still comes across as Xehanort feeling better than them. Xehanort and Ericus have this almost nonchalant nature when they're talking to the Queen. Being respectful, of course, but it's quite clear they don't view her as anything more than a means to an end. More so focused on the darkness in her, rather than her as a person at all. Xehanort has a theory that because they are of the light, they may be creating more darkness in their wake as they travel to the different worlds. Again, even this early, Xehanort questions whether light and darkness are truly good and evil, that maybe it is more a matter of perspective than simply right and wrong. He believes that no one can truly know right and wrong even if they have the title of Keyblade Master. To him it's just a title and nothing more. This might be why he's wary of the upperclassmen when they finally find them, though he hides and listens to them talk to one of his friends instead of running in to see what happened. Xehanort has a very flexible viewpoint, thinking that change is inevitable. He believes it should be embraced, and even if the lower classmates grow apart, they should learn to build new relationships. We know that Xehanort became isolated and alone, so I think he took the death of his classmates a lot more to heart than he realized. It fundamentally shifted how he viewed connections. Xehanort picks up on the darkness in Jafar, identifying it as greed, while others were not able to see it that clearly. Xehanort goes along with what Jafar asks though, pretending to help so that he can see more of the world. This comment by the upperclassmen where they are found seems to stick with Xehanort. Why they choose to upset the balance is because they are looking for true light, one that shines even in the face of confusion and uncertainty. You can see Xehanort pondering the words of his upperclassmen as he almost contradicts himself, saying he would rather a world fall to darkness if it means that they can defeat it. To truly beat the darkness, they believe they need to gather 7 lights. And this is the turning point, when he mentions their friends, the ones of light that were lost. This is where Xehanort learns about Kingdom Hearts, the power to save his friends and banish darkness, at the cost of potentially purging the worlds of everything. And these are the seeds planted for Xehanort's role, the Seeker of Darkness, to purge the world and to birth a new one, pure and bright. Vidar is trying to use Kingdom Hearts to take revenge on the darkness that took his friends, to purge it all. This is also where Xehanort learns about the final world, the world with a never-ending sky and ocean, where those who have lost their bodies but not their hearts end up at. During their fight with Hades, they get sucked into a dark corridor. They quickly put their armor on to fend off the darkness, and Xehanort warns Ericus of the whispers of darkness and how easily it can burrow in if they listen. Irmad and Erd succumb, and it seems that Xehanort and Ericus are about to perish as well, before Odin finds them and ferries them back to Scala. Xehanort and Ericus are the only ones to return from the underworld. Xehanort tells Odin about their run-in with Baldur, to which Odin responds with surprise. After the building shakes and Odin leaves, Ericus questions and wonders if Xehanort already knows what's happening. Xehanort had already put together that something was wrong with Baldur, and assumes he did something to the other classmates. Baldur fell to darkness after he lost his sister, and Xehanort figured this out. He's still willing to help Ericus take care of Baldur, and try to save him though. As Xehanort faces Baldur, he grabs at his heart, probably because he connected with Baldur's heart and felt the overflowing emotions. We see the care he has for Ericus, and he visibly sheds tears when he loses Vera. Xehanort moves to strike Baldur down even though he told Ericus he'd help him drive out the darkness. During the battle against Baldur, he speaks to Xehanort's inner battle of his heart between light and darkness, finding an unsure Xehanort which we don't see too often. Baldur tries to push in that insecurity. Here Baldur shares about two different kinds of people, those of light and those who will be left behind. It seems to resonate with Xehanort. Baldur speaks to Xehanort about how they will be blamed for falling to darkness while they chase their goals. While in the end, Xehanort ends up striking Baldur down, I think this conversation stays with them for a very long time. The crisis was averted, but Ericus and Xehanort would be forever changed. The rest of the story of Dark Road is these brief drop-ins as Xehanort grows up. 1 month later, Xehanort stands before the graves of his friends, laying down flowers for each one. He cared deeply for them all, enough to bring flowers to their graves and speak words of comfort to Baldur's grave. After Xehanort and Ericus banter a bit and idly chat at the gravesite, Ericus challenges Xehanort to a chess game. You can see here that Ericus inspires Xehanort with his dreams of light. The loss of his classmates, though, will echo throughout Xehanort's life, a reason to get rid of the darkness. It's interesting to note here that he would not create new relationships, even though previously he would state that change is inevitable, and that things would not stay the same. Of course, he wouldn't realize how much things would change, or the impact losing the people closest to him would have. 1 year later, Xehanort gets sent on a journey to prepare for the Mark of Mastery. Usually this exam is when the wielders would get their first glimpse of the worlds. This second journey, though, hits his emotions differently. He first thinks that maybe it was the first journey that changed his feelings, but then he wonders if they were born when he first left his island, noting that the emotions here would be too turbulent for anyone to bear, and that darkness here would devour anyone that would walk through. Even with his armor, he can feel the darkness seeping through. He wonders if he could fight it, though, if his heart was strong enough. He believes it's his destiny to stand up to the darkness, and so he takes off his armor. It becomes too much for him and he falls, with the Master of Masters finding him and noting he is the Singularity. We then get to see an exchange between Xehanort and this mysterious figure. Xehanort keeps his guard up with him, but the Master of Masters gets into his head, aligning with similar ideas about how light and darkness aren't straight good or evil. He asks Xehanort a question: is he a strong person or a weak person? To which Xehanort responds that he doesn't agree with such extreme characterizations. The Master of Masters also mentions a false light, something that would ring familiar to Xehanort. His upperclassmen talked of the true light coming back if Kingdom Hearts was brought forth and everything was destroyed. Xehanort learns his purpose during the world tour, stating that he believes darkness is lurking in every heart, and that the light they think they hold in their heart is a total farce. Rather than let them fall to darkness themselves, though, and create chaos, Xehanort still holds to his teaching that there needs to be order. Xehanort is not sure what he needs to do, but he knows that he needs to act, because what comes next is too important. Xehanort is getting closer to solidifying his role as the Seeker of Darkness, and the Master of Masters is there to ensure it seems. The Xehanort we see here is the one that has already gone forward in time and experienced the events of Dream Drop Distance and KH3. He makes a statement during those games that what happens here is etched into his heart, that he knows what must be done and he will return back to that time, doing what must be done even if he doesn't remember it. The Master of Masters plants in his head that soon he won't need the code, that if he really is strong that he will control the darkness instead of it controlling him. 2 years later, Xehanort and Ericus discuss their world tours over a chess game. Xehanort ponders how it made him think about a lot of things, about the past and what's to come. Xehanort laments that one lifetime isn't enough, and he wouldn't want someone else to carry on his legacy. He wishes he could have 13 lifetimes, which he believes is what he needs to rebuild the world. But then he scratches that, saying he needs one more to explore the new world that is built. It's very on the nose, seeing how he created 13 vessels for himself, and also how an interview from Nomura, with an accompanying artwork of young Xehanort in an area of Shibuya, seems to imply that he did indeed get his wish. A couple years later, Xehanort is still visibly upset as he lays down flowers for his comrades. Xehanort is leaving once again to see more of the world before the Mark of Mastery. But he is searching for something in particular. Xehanort returns to Wonderland, asking if the Queen remembers him, and confirms that there is still a darkness hiding out inside the Queen. Jumping forward a couple more years, Xehanort becomes a Keyblade Master, seemingly successful on his Mark of Mastery exam. He is bequeathed a no-name Keyblade that was used by the Lost Masters. Xehanort has often thought about how best to protect the world, and seems to have come to the conclusion that the best way is by summoning Kingdom Hearts. He then spends the next 47 years laying out plans carefully. 54 years later after the events of Dark Road, Xehanort fights with Ericus about bringing forth the darkness once again. He wonders, if a Keyblade War happens again and darkness covers the land, would they be found worthy still of the precious light? He is driven by these questions. He needs to know. He believes that darkness is not the end, but the beginning. These questions are more important than even his friendship with Ericus, and he uses the darkness, or lets it in order to get the answers to them. It's clear his dreams of his friends and ending the darkness are his only driving motivation at this point. The people still alive and the future generations are simply pawns, people that don't interest him, and we've seen how Xehanort acts towards people that don't interest him. 10 years later, Xehanort reveals why he shaved his head, somehow showing to himself his resolve. He still thinks about those he has lost, both those who are gone and those who have gone a different path. However, there's a special place in his heart for those he only saw in his dreams. He never found them in all his years, but he never gave up hope. He learns from the magic mirror that the key to them lies in a boy who holds both light and darkness in him at the Keyblade Graveyard. A year later is the beginning of the events of Birth by Sleep. He forces Ven to embrace the darkness, believing that he could form the Keyblade from a heart of pure light falling to darkness. He extracts the darkness hiding within Ventus, creating Vanitas, almost destroying Ven's heart in the process. He goes to lay Ven down in the Destiny Islands, but Ven wakes up, showing his heart is still there, and thus Xehanort decides to entrust him to Ericus. Xehanort reiterates that traversing the corridors as a human is not safe because of the spirits and emotions. If one tries to embrace the emotions here, their heart is corroded by darkness. He notes though that because Ven has closed his heart off, that it doesn't matter for him. He then noted that his first mentor taught him that the one inscribed in the book, the one chosen to be a dark vessel, can connect their heart to others and feel what they feel. Believing himself to be that chosen vessel, he opens himself up to those emotions. As he arrives to drop off Ven with Master Ericus, the letter he sent ahead of his arrival is brought up. It seems that he immediately traveled to the Keyblade Graveyard a year ago, and found Ven there and took him under his wing ever since. He tells Ericus he believes Ventus is the one. As Xehanort leaves, he comes across Vanitas, and says that he left Ven here to save him, not for Vanitas. He also seems to hold some disdain for Vanitas, stating that he may be pure darkness, but that Xehanort could make quick work of him if he wished. He shows his knowledge of the ancient darknesses, believing that the 7 most powerful were housed inside the bodies of the Lost Masters. For the remaining 6, 4 of them were trapped in the world comprised of Data, the Data version of the world of Union Cross. 2 were supposedly destroyed when the world collapsed, but he states that one of those survived, and disguised itself as an ally of light inside of Ven. Xehanort connects the dots, pointing at Vanitas as the one ancient darkness that has survived. He wonders what the reason could be to conceal its existence, though. Anyways, here Xehanort states something fascinating. He knows that Ven's heart was not split into two, one of light and one of darkness. He also shows that he does indeed recognize Ventus as being from his dreams. Their meeting was not by chance, but orchestrated by Xehanort. Vanitas ponders what he knows, but Xehanort plays dumb and they continue onwards. We knew at a young age that Xehanort was cunning and smart, but he's had 64 years to harness and build upon those abilities, and it shows here. Xehanort in Birth by Sleep is set up as the main antagonist, manipulating the Warriors of Light from the shadows. The secret reports of this game are all written by Xehanort and give us more insight into his motivations throughout the game, so I'll try to cover those first, since a lot of them lead up to the beginning of the game. It is honestly fascinating how closely these line up with the Xehanort portrayed in Dark Road. I mean, the first two reports talk about a myriad of things, such as him thinking about how much his life has changed when he arrived at that place, and his questions over the true purpose of the Keyblade Masters and the Keyblades they wielded. It even pinpoints the time where Xehanort would forego his protection, letting darkness in. The third and fourth reports lay out Xehanort's main motivation and fixation that has kept his attention since he was young, Kingdom Hearts. It's not clear where Xehanort gets his information from, and the way to go about creating Kingdom Hearts seems obfuscated on purpose, with some believing it is the hearts of worlds or the hearts of people that are needed to bring forth this moon, and the subsequent door, while the clashing of light and darkness are needed to create a key to open it. Xehanort also believes here in this moment that the one who opens the door will be reborn as something far greater than human. Whoever brought about the first Keyblade War and subsequently created the new world made it so that everything is separated by gates to make sure another war does not come about. Now, I could make a whole video about Kingdom Hearts and the nuances of the different types and ways to bring about an artificial or real Kingdom Hearts, but I think if I want to put it succinctly, Xehanort believes that the current world is under the tyranny of the light, a false light. And so Xehanort looks to fight back against that light, and subsequently against Ericus. Now, with everything we know, it kind of makes sense why Ericus is so trusting of him, what with all the history that they have in Dark Road. They've constantly bickered, and after his initial letter he sends explaining about Ven, it seems like things are patched up after their short altercations some years ago. At this age, Xehanort has almost completely given in to the darkness, all with the goal now of summoning Kingdom Hearts. Xehanort even makes sure that Terra does not pass the exam, as seen by Ericus stating that they have deliberated together to make a decision about who would become a Keyblade Master, also that he can swoop down and become Terra's new mentor. Xehanort consistently creates these moments, putting himself in a place where he can nudge things ever so slightly into his favor, but not enough that it ruins his appearance. He plays with Terra, confusing him about the true nature of darkness, making it sound like something that he can easily control. It's also interesting to see that comment from the Master of Masters earlier ringing true as we see Xehanort go through a dark corridor with no coat or armor. I touched on the scene between Terra and Xehanort in my Psychology of Terra video, but Xehanort is a master at manipulating the truth. He uses kernels of truth to obscure and misdirect. He admits that he was the cause of Vanitas, but twists it in a way that makes it seem like he was saving Ventus, who was falling to darkness. Which, even with the information that we know from Dark Road, that's honestly kind of true. But we know that he wanted Vanitas to come out. It wasn't an accident. Xehanort gives Terra just enough of the truth to get what he needs. Having been a part of the light and walking a similar path, he knows the words to say, the way to act, to draw Terra to his side. He orchestrates everything from the shadows, using Braig to convince Terra to fight and move closer to the darkness. It's similar to his attitude in Dark Road, seeing everyone around him as simply pawns, a means to an end that he is moving on a chessboard. Xehanort echoes similar things that he heard on his path to darkness. He states darkness can be channeled, that it can be controlled. While we don't know if that's exactly true, he left out the part of darkness eating away at anyone who comes near it. He lets his inner thoughts bleed through at times though. He wants to rebalance the world as he believes the darkness and light have become imbalanced. It's actually really fascinating how he orchestrated the Birth by Sleep trip to go on essentially a similar world tour that he and Ericus went on. He encourages Terra to continue traveling the worlds and seek out the darkness that upsets the balance. Again, very striking similarity to what Xehanort and Ericus went through. Of course, Xehanort believes the false light actually is the imbalance, but he doesn't share that with Terra, again telling him exactly what he wants to hear. His coldness to Braig after they work together once again shows the indifference he holds about the people around him. They're not people to him, just a means to an end. It doesn't matter to him what connections are broken or strained, as long as he can attain the Keyblade in the end. Near the climax of Birth by Sleep, Xehanort no longer needs to keep up appearances, as all the pieces have come together. He gets ahead of himself, as Kingdom Hearts is so near to his grasp. Xehanort continues to stoke the flame of Terra's heart as Kingdom Hearts is formed. With the Keyblade being formed successfully, or so he believes, Xehanort jumps to his next lifetime, using the power of the Keyblade to move into Terra as a vessel. Xehanort talks about the heart's true nature, mirroring the iconic quote from Kingdom Hearts 1.
All worlds begin in darkness,
And also end. The heart is no different. Darkness sprouts within it. It grows, consumes it. Such is its nature. In the end, every heart returns to the darkness whence it came. You see, darkness is the heart's true essence.
He believes that all hearts came from darkness and all shall return to it. He miscalculated though. Terra's lingering will stands up to him, seeking to thwart his plans. But the unformed Keyblade shatters at this point, sending everyone careening out of the Keyblade graveyard. Terra continues to fight back for his heart throughout all of this. Despite Xehanort having foreseen so much, he hasn't been able to account for everything. As they fight for control of Terra's heart, Xehanort makes a comment of the fact that Terra is just one of the many roads that he might choose to take, already implying that he has set up the 13 vessels he needs for his plan to come to fruition. Sometime later, Aqua finds Xehanort in the Radiant Gardens. He seems to have forgotten who he was for a second, but returns quickly. We see that Xehanort is not able to fully take over Terra's heart, and so he thrusts Terra out of his body with his Keyblade. As Xehanort falls into the pit of darkness that he created, he is saved by Aqua, and ends up being found unconscious by the researchers in Radiant Garden. As shown by a secret report in Kingdom Hearts 3, there was a point where Xehanort had actually lost his memory, but the experiments into his heart brought his memories back at some point, though he continued to play the part of a fool while working under Ansem the Wise. During his time here, he pens the Ansem reports, experimenting on the effects of darkness on hearts. As he continues to experiment, Heartless are birthed, and Xehanort also creates the emblem Heartless, which are artificially created Heartless. The Heartless move towards a door which Xehanort discovers leads to the heart of the world. This triggers their world to be connected, allowing travel, and Mickey appears, revealing even more of Xehanort's past to him and teaching him of the Keyblades connected to Kingdom Hearts. Eventually he remembers everything, opening up the door to the heart of their world and allowing it to fall to darkness. He captures Kairi as the Radiant Gardens are falling to that darkness, believing that by sending her out in a lifeboat, that she will find another world where a Keyblade wielder resides. He says that it will save their world, that it isn't an experiment, but hope. The world he is talking about here is not the world of Radiant Garden, but the entire world. As the world falls to darkness, he releases the hearts of the researchers around him, donning the name Ansem. It's so interesting that even at this point where it feels like he's fallen completely to darkness, he still has this whole plan to make sure that everything ends up the way that he needs it to. If he didn't need that Keyblade wielder, that child of destiny, then why send Kairi out? Why tell her that it's not an experiment, but hope? Xehanort, for whatever reason, dons the Darkseeker role. And while he may seem evil throughout it all, I think there's almost an irony in the way that he plays his role out. That's essentially the end of Birth by Sleep, and before I get into the events of Kingdom Hearts 3, I want to take a second to cover these other parts of Xehanort. So let's start with Ansem, Seeker of Darkness. As Ansem was reduced to a heart, he was no longer shackled by the bounds of time. This process also birthed the nobody Xemnas, who started to gather the other vessels to create the 13, that could be used to fight against the 7 Guardians of Light and create the Keyblade. The Heartless of Xehanort becomes this robed figure, using this opportunity to set his other plans into motion. He travels to the time of Dark Road, coaxing his younger self to seek out other worlds, ensuring that he would follow the same path, and create the version of Xehanort that would allow him to become a Heartless to time travel in the first place. He then waits or travels forward to the time of Kingdom Hearts 1, where he's able to be there when the world fell to darkness, ensuring that when Sora and Riku traveled here in Dream Drop Distance, that he and his other selves would be able to use him as a waypoint to follow Sora and Riku into the Sleeping Realm. The Heartless of Xehanort, Ansem Seeker of Darkness, would follow Riku, eventually using him as a vessel to return to a physical form. There's some really interesting parallels that I've pointed out before about Riku and how similar he is to Xehanort. I love how this recontextualizes the speech that Ansem gives when he's looking out over the islands, right? Because it could be about Riku, but it also could be about his younger self. Anyways, Ansem is a quiet antagonist for the most part, silently working from the shadows. When he does speak, he sort of implies that he has this knowledge that's much vaster than others can understand. Kind of again showing that haughty attitude that we've seen in the younger Xehanort. Much like with Terra, Ansem stokes the flames of Riku's heart, seeking to use him as a vessel when darkness has fully crept in. There's this really interesting moment when he takes a jab at Maleficent, calling her a simple puppet used by the darkness. The way that Xehanort has been written and kind of built up as a character, once again it shows that view of Xehanort seeing others as simply pawns for him in the darkness. I mentioned this before, but this iconic line of his when he's looking out over the Destiny Islands becomes a double meaning, talking about Riku of course and his need to seek freedom, but also hinting at young Xehanort's journey as well. The ending of Kingdom Hearts, I imagine, was not really taking into account how much Xehanort knows, because Ansem here forgets that light and darkness are 2 sides of the same coin. Though maybe he just didn't assume that there would be such vast, powerful light in the depths of darkness. There's not too much more we can pull from these events, though it is interesting to see his last conversation with Riku. He sees at the end that he never stood a chance, that Riku's strength was so much vaster than the darkness. He even admits that he wanted to defy his fate, his appointed path, but that nothing seemed to matter at that point. In the pursuit of the dreams of the Union Cross members, Ansem, or Xehanort rather, lost his way. He was empty. Xemnas appears in the final mixed version of Kingdom Hearts, stating that he had met Roxas and wanted to test Sora's strength. Xemnas, throughout the events of Days, uses Kingdom Hearts as a guide for the others, telling them all that they lack hearts, and their goal is to create Kingdom Hearts to become whole again. Of course, as the player, we soon discover this is all false, and Xemnas was using the vessels, all as puppets, to create the 13 vessels for darkness to clash against the light. This Kingdom Hearts they were creating of the hearts of men was a backup plan that Xemnas was working on, just like Ansem Seeker of Darkness was looking for his own way to bring about Kingdom Hearts, which he found in the Abyss, while also gathering the 7 pure hearts of light for the real Kingdom Hearts. Xemnas also sees the people around him as pawns, even using the term puppet when referring to Xion, though I believe he sees all of the vessels as his puppets. Xemnas also uses the terminology of pawn when overpowering the lead. Xemnas' goal, just like Xehanort, is to become one with Kingdom Hearts, to use it to bring about a new world. In Dream Drop Distance, Xehanort kind of calls back to the world order he learned about in Dark Road when he's talking about the world of Tron. How every world has a set of rules that they follow and obey, even if they don't make sense. Like in Wonderland, how the Queen ruled in fear, but that fear kept everyone in order. In Tron's world, he uses the rules around Data for his own needs, twisting Tron's code to manipulate it. It is also revealed in Kingdom Hearts 3 that he chose Larxene, Marluxia, Luxord, and Demyx because of the Keyblade legacy that slumbered within them. The final thing I want to talk about with Xemnas is that he has an emotion when he is defeated in Kingdom Hearts 3. That surge of emotion is loneliness, which he translates as pain. It is so interesting seeing this mirrored through young Xehanort, who sees the loneliness as a source of power, but a later version of Xehanort bemoans the feeling as it reminds him of everything he has lost. Finally, I wanted the young Xehanort who travels through time to have his own spot, since he's kind of different than the original young Xehanort. This young Xehanort seems to take his journey before the events of Dark Road even begin. If we listen to what he says throughout the events of Kingdom Hearts, he mentions that he would forget his time in the future. but that it would be etched into his heart and guide him. The events that play out with this time-traveling young Xehanort make sure that everything else falls into place. Young Xehanort is tasked with gathering the Vessels of Darkness throughout time and keeps tabs on Sora through his Mark of Mastery exam, drawing him deeper into the dream. We've seen Xehanort connect with Ericus in Dark Road and see his memories, which is probably how Xehanort can appear to know so much about Sora in his journey. Xehanort also notes how he followed his destined path. Even at this young of an age, Xehanort is completely allowing his heart to be his guiding key. In Kingdom Hearts 3, Xehanort speaks to the power of darkness coming from being alone, how this is more powerful because darkness is the heart's true nature. These experiences and beliefs are imprinted onto his heart, impacting him greatly but also creating a bias towards the darkness. And that's really all I wanted to cover with these other selves. It's really interesting to see these pieces of Xehanort kind of scattered throughout his other selves. I think it was built up perfectly to kind of give this feeling of familiarity when we finally did meet the original Xehanort. Xehanort reforms as his old self in Dream Drop Distance. He admits he was too eager and acted rashly, leading to a stay in his plans. As he stated before, he had multiple plans trying to find his way to Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts 3 is his final plan coming to fruition. 13 darknesses against 7 lights. A battle waged to finally bring forth the full Keyblade. The Keyblade reveals the true form of Kingdom Hearts, raining darkness down. Sora channels the light though, creating a portal from Xehanort and diving into his dream of a world he had once known, Skull-eyed Kylo. As his 13 vessels appear and are defeated, they rejoin with Xehanort, and we see his new Keyblade armor. It's significant that he has completely shifted over to the role of the Scapegoat. And while we don't know exactly when this happened, we know that the young Xehanort that travels through time, as well as the older Xehanort who has the no-name Keyblade, both have goat motifs laid out in their design. While in the events of Dark Road, before it seems that he is changed by darkness, he has a normal Keyblade. Xehanort's Keyblade armor in the events of Dark Road is that of the crown. Throughout this entire journey, Xehanort has believed he was on a set path. He always noted that destiny has never left a chance. He believed that he alone had the power to return the world back to a balance. The end of Kingdom Hearts 3 is when we finally see all of Xehanort's beliefs laid out plainly. He believes the world needs someone strong to stand up and lead it, to stop the weak from polluting the world with darkness. Xehanort is not so much misguided, but was playing the long game, thinking that it was okay to snuff out what he believed to be a fake light, which he learned of from the Master and Masters, for the true light that would be birthed from the darkness that came from Kingdom Hearts. Ericus proved to him though that there was more to light than meets the eye, or that maybe this false light that Xehanort believed was there was not actually a false light at all, but just needed a strong darkness to burn against. I think this is why he bequeathed the Keyblade to Sora, realizing that even though darkness had won and light should have expired, it wasn't extinguished. Sora showed him that there was a stronger person to take the helm. Xehanort's only motivation throughout all of this was to meet the friends he had from his dreams and to rebalance the light and darkness no matter the cost. Thinking he was still Destiny's child, he became the Seeker of Darkness and inadvertently became the Scapegoat through which either darkness or the Master and Masters used him. And so seeing light and darkness be balanced, or at least seeing that someone was stronger than him that could make that happen, he was able to move forward in the hopes that he would meet the friends from his dreams, since he saw that they too passed away. And this is a stretch, but maybe that's what Xehanort had planned all along. Maybe in some twisted way he thought he could sacrifice himself, balancing the light and the darkness, and also moving on to be with his friends. And that is the psychology of Xehanort. We see when he is younger that he has a very curious mind and a caring heart, though after the huge loss of his friends, he changes. Well, not so much changes, but focuses in on the one thing that was etched into his heart, to follow his destined path. I think it shows the pitfalls of being so focused on what we think we need to be happy or fulfilled. Often people will think, if I just have this one thing, or if I can just accomplish this one thing, then I'll finally be happy. And Xehanort followed that. If he could just call forth Kingdom Hearts, then maybe, just maybe, he could right the wrong and unbalanced nature of the world, and finally find the people he had only dreamed about. It consumed him, taking over his whole nature, isolating him from the one friend he had left, and leading him down a path that left him empty. I think that's one of the scariest things about Xehanort's story. His biggest fear was emptiness, and in the end, that's exactly what he had become. I think back to Xemnas and Ansem's dying words, and how both seemed to feel empty near the end. It's a sobering story when you put it into perspective. An entire lifetime spent in pursuit of one thing at the sacrifice of everything else, ending in nothing. What I hope for is that Xehanort does indeed get to return in Quadratum, despite how controversial that might be. I think I'd like to see a Xehanort who didn't have himself swallowed whole by the Darkseeker role. A curious, wise boy who finds Sora in the streets of Shibuya, and learns that maybe the power of being alone really isn't all there is. That true connection can be a power far greater. And I think that's it for the video. I hope you found this interesting. It was a labor of love, truly, trying to track down Xehanort's journey through time and all the different characters. It was a lot. I really appreciate people's patience as I was putting this together. It took a really long time. I know I got comments all the time saying like, I can't wait for the Xehanort video, and that was really, really heartwarming to read and to see that encouragement. I really hope, one, that this was enjoyable, but also that you came away with a better appreciation of Xehanort. I don't think that Xehanort's some, like, phenomenal guy, right? Like, he did terrible things. I hope that people don't take that message away that, like, I'm rationalizing everything that Xehanort did, right? Because it's not that it was rationalized, it was that Xehanort didn't see the people that he was hurting as people, which in and of its own self is, like, terrifying. But that was how far his ambition led him and how much it made him empty in the end. So hopefully that comes across in the video. But if you made it this far, comment Keyblade. I always like to leave a little like comment at the end of these because it's really funny to see how people work that into their comment. If you enjoyed this, you might like my other videos diving into the psychology of different characters. I've done videos on psychology of Sora, psychology of Aqua. Even done some that are not Kingdom Hearts, like the Psychology of Cloud. So check those out if that sounds interesting. I also do kind of on like the complete opposite spectrum is combat analysis videos. So check those out if you want a closer look at some of the animations in Kingdom Hearts. Also, right at the end, I just want to plug myself. If you enjoy my content, it greatly helps me out if you become a patron or member. There are links in the description. You can pledge as little as $1 a month, or you can set a custom amount. Every little bit helps. And the support means the world to me. I seriously cannot thank the patrons and members who kept supporting me through the development of this longer project. I know this was months in the making. So anyways, I super appreciate it. I apologize for this taking so long, but I genuinely appreciate the support. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention and give a huge thank you to SonnyNovus, who did all of the visuals for the transitions of this video. This pushed back the video a little bit, but I feel like it brought this cohesion to the whole narrative, and I love how it tied into the video, and I would not want it any other way. I'll leave a link down in the description below to his channel. He does some incredible work. His next project is actually on Riku, and he uses a lot of Blender to get across his visuals. I've seen a little bit of it, and I'm blown away by the amount of care and detail and work that he puts into the things that he makes. And lastly, I know I quickly went through the events of Dark Road. This is never supposed to be a synopsis video, so if you're looking for a video about Dark Road and what it all is about, Damo has been working to the bone on a Dark Road Explained video. He is finishing up production on it. He is so close. So I will leave either a link to his video on screen if it's done already, or there'll be a link to his channel so you can subscribe and not miss it. I think that's everything I wanted to say. If you're still here, thank you for sticking around. I'll see you in the next video, which will be on the Psychology of Naminé, I think.